Hi and welcome. I'm Anewz and you are watching Anewz. Here are the headlines. Israel strikes Qatar's capital Doha in attempt to assassinate Hamas officials. French President Emmanuel Macron appoints Sébastien Lecornu as new prime minister. Nepal's parliament set on fire. Prime minister resigns over anti-corruption protests. Thank you for tuning in. Israel has bombed Doha in an attempt to assassinate high-ranking Hamas officials. Israeli Prime Minister claims that the operation in the Qatari capital was wholly Israeli and says he ordered the attack following the shooting incident in Jerusalem the day before. Qatar, a mediator between Israel and Hamas, condemned the bombing, calling it a cowardly and criminal act. More condemnations followed.
Several explosions shook the Qatari capital on Tuesday. Witnesses reported black smoke rising from the Lake Tafaya district near a petrol station and a residential compound guarded by Qatari security forces since the start of the Gaza war. Israel has claimed responsibility for a strike, targeting senior Hamas leaders in Doha. An Israeli official confirmed to Reuters that the attack targeted Hamas leaders. Qatar's Al Jazeera television, citing a Hamas source, said the strike focused on Hamas's Gaza ceasefire negotiators. Israeli officials said the operation was aimed at Khalil al-Hayya, Hamas's exiled Gaza chief and lead negotiator. The Israeli Prime Minister's office issued a statement on social media declaring, "Israel initiated it, Israel conducted it, and Israel takes full responsibility." The Israeli military described the strike as a precise operation against Hamas's senior leadership, whom it blamed for the October 7th massacre and the ongoing war, adding that steps were taken to minimize civilian harm. Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich praised the operation, writing online that terrorists have no immunity from Israel's long arm anywhere in the world, and called it a perfect execution. Qatar, which has been mediating ceasefire talks between Israel and Hamas, condemned the attack as cowardly and a flagrant violation of international law. Several Arab officials also took to social media to denounce the strike. Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson said Israel's attack on Hamas officials in Qatar is dangerous and a violation of international law, Iranian media reported. United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres condemned Israel's strikes on Qatar Tuesday, calling them a flagrant violation of Doha's sovereignty. Two Hamas sources told Reuters that members of the group's ceasefire negotiating team survived. The strike marks the first time Israel has expanded its war to Qatari territory, raising new questions about the future of Doha's mediation role in ceasefire talks.
Over in France, President Emmanuel Macron named Sébastien Lecornu to be the new prime minister. Earlier today, Macron accepted the resignation of now former Prime Minister François Bayrou, a day after his government lost the confidence vote in the National Assembly. Bayrou himself called the vote over his austerity budget, which aimed to cut billions in government spending. Until the entire new government is appointed, Bayrou and his ministers will continue to carry out their duties in a caretaker capacity. France is in fresh turmoil after former Prime Minister François Bayrou lost the no-confidence vote. Markets are on edge, with Macron being under pressure to name the new government. Our Anita Sharma has more.
Welcome to This Day in Europe, where France's political landscape is upended and caught in a spiral of political turmoil. Prime Minister François Bayrou lost a no-confidence vote Monday after unveiling a highly contentious €44 billion austerity plan that was aimed at reducing the country's massive deficit. 364 deputies opposed Bayrou versus 194 in favor. Now, President Emmanuel Macron must appoint a new prime minister within days, his fifth in less than 2 years, or consider calling snap elections. He's thus far resisted the latter option. The Élysée Palace says he will name a new premier soon. Now, despite the political shockwave, stocks reacted with measured restraint. France's main index, the CAC 40, rose slightly. That was attributed to stronger M&A sentiment across Europe. As for the bond market, very different story. It remains very nervous, with France's 10-year yield surging to 3.49%. It's now just behind Italy as the riskier sovereign in the Eurozone, and it's just ahead of Greece, a longtime Eurozone troubled borrower. France is now in company with countries long viewed by global investors as uncertain and volatile. While analysts note that markets largely priced in the worst, tempering immediate volatility, debt fears persist. France's high deficit, which is about 5 to 6% of GDP, and soaring debt to GDP ratios remain a critical concern. Experts warn that the ongoing instability threatens France's internal governance and the broader cohesion of the Eurozone. They emphasize the need for a swift transition to a stable minority government capable of governance or a credible technocratic alternative. They caution that dilution or delay of the austerity plan will fuel investor unease. It could also deepen downgrading risks, particularly with global ratings agency Fitch, which is scheduled to reassess France's AA- rating this Friday. France's political crisis could prompt Fitch to cut its rating down to A+ and pave the way for other agencies such as Moody's and S&P Global to follow suit. Last year, Moody's downgraded the country's credit rating, which could go even lower next month. France's latest government collapse adds to a troubling pattern of instability that now threatens its fiscal credibility and standing in Europe. While markets have soothed over the immediate shock, the actual test lies ahead. Can a new administration restore coherence? Can the government pass a credible budget and keep France from being relegated to the default zone of European sovereign risk? Analysts and other Eurozone member states hope the answers are forthcoming. For Anewz, I'm Anita Sharma reporting from Arnhem, Netherlands.
Still with France, the country is bracing for nationwide protests. Aviation authorities are warning of disruptions as protests against the government escalate into a general strike.
The French Civil Aviation Directorate says flight cancellations and delays will hit Marseille, Nice, Bastia, Figari and Calvi airports from Wednesday evening. The warning coincides with calls spreading online for a total indefinite boycott starting on September the 10th. The action is aimed squarely at Prime Minister François Bayrou and President Emmanuel Macron.
Yes, I decided to participate because this was the last straw in our outrage, and enough is enough. We have to share this with public service, with social justice, with climate and biodiversity, with people who are starving. And so I think this is the moment, and I feel like something different is happening. There's a great alliance that's starting to form.
A wide range of groups are mobilizing, from climate activists to anti-globalization movements. While organisers insist demonstrations will be peaceful, many warn the protests could block businesses and transport until the political system responds.
No, it's exaggeration to say we'll break everything. We won't break everything, but we will block them so that the political system reacts. Some have 10 pay slips, but the little workers earn €1,500 a month. And the bosses, everyone is rotten in any case. We live in a society of cheaters.
Analysts warn the scale of the mobilisation will depend on whether demonstrations remain peaceful. They say anger has reached across social classes, fueling comparisons with the Yellow Vest movement of 2019.
We don't know yet what's going to happen, but many people have made comparisons to the Yellow Vest movement that happened in 2019. And that also had a very similar flavor. It was grassroots, there wasn't a leader, it started on the right, it spread to the left. And so some people have tried to, certainly in this movement, have tried to capture the energy from the Gilets jaunes, from the Yellow Vest movement, to basically propel this one.
Unions, activists and citizens are now preparing to march on September the 10th, a day authorities warn could bring widespread disruption across France's transport network and test the government's ability to contain unrest.
Elsewhere in Europe, Norwegian Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre has secured re-election, extending his Labour-led government despite record gains for the populist right. The election was dominated by concerns over living costs, inequality, and global conflicts.
Norway's Labour Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre has secured a second term after a tightly fought election shaped as much by global politics as by domestic concerns. With nearly all ballots counted, Labour and its allies won 87 of Parliament's 169 seats, just above the threshold for a majority. The campaign was dominated by the cost of living crisis, wealth taxes, and the future of Norway's $2 trillion sovereign wealth fund, the largest in the world. Relations with US President Donald Trump, his tariff threats, and Norway's role in international security also loomed large in the debate.
Dear all, we had a goal in this election, and that was re-election and a continued Labour government.
Støre's critics had once questioned his survival, but his long experience as Prime Minister and former Foreign Minister helped convince voters seeking stability amid the wars in Ukraine and Gaza.
We're going to lead the country finances safely and responsibly so that people's everyday finances are safe and they can afford more.
Labour's revival was also linked to the return of former NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg as finance minister, a move that party members say boosted trust on security and the economy. But the election also marked a sharp turn in Norway's politics. The anti-immigration Progress Party doubled its share and overtook the Conservatives to become the main opposition for the first time. Finance Minister Stoltenberg said the outcome sends a wider signal to Europe.
It's great to be part of the team of Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre and to see how a Social Democratic Party in Europe can win. Also when we face a surge in the support for the populist right. And I think if there is any lesson to be learned for the rest of Europe is that it is possible to win in a campaign where you have a strong populist right that is actually gaining support on the...
Foreign Minister Espen Barth Eide pledged Norway would stay firm on its global commitments.
Of course, as Foreign Minister, I will continue what we're doing in a strong support for Ukraine, a strong position on Israel-Palestine, trying to stop the war, get humanitarian aid in.
Official results confirm Labour's narrow victory. Prime Minister Støre will need support from 4 left-wing parties to pass legislation, with negotiations expected on oil policy, climate targets and the management of Norway's sovereign wealth fund. The Progress Party, meanwhile, secured its best result to date, becoming the main opposition in parliament.
More than 20 civilians have been killed in a Russian airstrike on the village of Yarova in Ukraine's eastern Donetsk region, according to the country's president Volodymyr Zelensky. Video released by Ukrainian authorities shows the aftermath, bodies lying near a destroyed car, as locals described the moment an aerial bomb struck while pensions were being handed out. In a post on X, Zelensky called it a brutally savage attack, saying Russia hit ordinary civilians directly, and renewed appeals for stronger international action. Violent anti-government protests continue across Nepal's capital, Kathmandu, after Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli resigned, with government buildings, courts, and politicians' homes set on fire. Officials are calling for calm and political dialogue.
Chaos continues in Kathmandu, Nepal, following the resignation of Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli. According to the New York Times, protesters have set fire to government buildings, the Supreme Court, a special anti-corruption court, party offices, police stations, and the homes of top politicians. The unrest began over government attempts to ban major social media platforms, including WhatsApp and Instagram, igniting long-standing frustration over corruption, social inequities, and economic hardship. On Monday, security forces opened fire on demonstrators, killing at least 19 people and injuring more than 100.
This is the condition of Nepal. Oli should leave the nation. Many students died on Monday during the protest, and because of that, Oli should leave the nation. And students like us should continue to raise their voice.
Sharma Oli's resignation, along with several cabinet ministers, came as a response to mounting pressure. But the move has not calmed the streets. Security officials, including the army chief, have issued a joint statement calling for restraint and urging political parties to resolve the crisis through dialogue. Despite these calls, fires continue to rage across the Kathmandu Valley.
If this incompetent and corrupt government resigns soon and creates an environment for forming a new government immediately, then today's movement will gradually come to an end.
The protests highlight deeper issues in Nepal: high youth unemployment, widespread corruption, and frustration with an entrenched political elite. Even after the resignation, the country faces an uncertain path as young people continue to demand accountability and systemic change.
Back to our top story. Following the Israeli strike on Hamas leadership in Doha, Reuters reported that the group's ceasefire negotiators have survived the attack, quoting two Hamas sources. Joining us now from Bahrain to talk on the unprecedented Israeli attack on Qatari soil is political consultant, author, and lecturer on international relations and political strategy, Ahmed Al-Khuzai. Welcome. Thank you so much for being with us. Now, Israel claims it acted alone. The White House says the U.S. was notified by the Pentagon about the Israeli strikes and that they sent a message through the special envoy Witkoff to the Qataris. What is your take on what we've witnessed today?
Until now, nobody is able to give the exact answer on any of the questions, to be precise, especially that just a few minutes ago, President Trump gave a comment on the matter saying that they were not notified on time and they were notified after. So it's not easy, basically, to answer this, because this will raise another question about which airspace have they used and have they violated any laws or any treaties. So it will take time for us to understand what happened exactly. But what we have on hand right now is the facts. The facts is that Israel have launched an assault on Hamas leadership in Qatar. None of them died, yet 5 of the second line of leadership have passed away. We know that 8 of the major leaders of Hamas are residing in Qatar. They are non-harmed. The Gulf states are in a place of discontent. They're not happy with what happened, and they need to be sure that it won't happen again. And that's exactly what President Trump said a few minutes ago, that he guarantees it won't happen again.
Well, Doha, a major U.S. ally, has said it will not tolerate reckless Israeli behavior. As you've mentioned, the Gulf states have shown their discontent. Scores of condemnations of the strikes poured in from the UN Secretary General, the Gulf countries, and beyond. Among those countries are signatories to the Abraham Accords. In your mind, what happens with the Accords now and all the plans to get more countries aboard?
Actually, since last week, when the United Arab Emirates gave a speech stating that the Accords are not in its best state at the moment, especially with Israel giving statements back then saying that they will expand within the West Bank and they will annex it. This is a second level, basically, to the Accords, and since last week I was not able to comprehend, but now I'm telling you, it's not the best state of for a position for the Abraham Accord states now.
Well, one of the main questions that presents itself now is if not even Doha is safe for negotiations on ending the war in Gaza. What's the alternative?
Apparently, Doha was the last refuge for the negotiations to take place, and they announced right after the attack that they won't host any, or they won't partake in the negotiations for the time being until they understand or they form a proper position. If we think about it clearly or straightforward, going from here, if not Qatar, who will take it forward? We don't see anybody willing to take that part, hosting Hamas, and then from there to take the speech, basically the negotiations forward, especially that this last round of negotiations was somehow positive compared to the others. So if the positive ones are not going forward, how would the next ones go? I don't think it will have any positive impact on the short foreseen future.
The Speaker of Israel's Knesset shared footage of the blast, saying this is a message to all of the Middle East. Now, the UAE and Saudi Arabia, for example, said they stand with Qatar. Do you expect any significant response of the Arab nations to the strikes?
Yes, all Arab and even Islamic nations will condemn it, that's for sure. This statement by an Israeli official just hours after the attack basically is not helping Israel's position, even for those who stand or stood by Israel for the past. I'm sure it's making it very hard for them to stand for Israel at the moment.
Ahmed, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insight and opinions. International aid is flowing into Afghanistan after the recent deadly earthquake in the east of the country. Governments and organizations worldwide are sending in food, medicine, and supplies. Our Tamim Bahis has the details in Kabul.
China has pledged an additional 50 million yuan, about $7 million in emergency aid on top of earlier shipments to alleviate the challenging humanitarian conditions in Afghanistan, as the country continues to grapple with the aftermath of the devastating earthquakes. Tajikistan has sent over 3,000 tons of food, clothing and construction materials. The European Union has allocated 14 million euros to expand resilient programs run by the UN and partner agencies. UNICEF says children have been hit hardest, more than 19,000 affected, 731 killed, and dozens left without families. Russia has delivered a second shipment of 20 tons of tents and blankets, while the WHO sent 35 metric tons of medical supplies. Qatar has set up a temporary hospital and shelters in quake zone, and Switzerland has provided 20 tons of non-food aid, including tents and winter clothing. With aid arriving from across the globe, Afghan officials say the focus now is on reaching survivors quickly and helping families rebuild their lives. This is Tamim Bahis in Kabul for Anewz.
A ceremony was held at the Absheron Logistics Center to celebrate the 5th anniversary of the China-Europe Railway Express route via the Middle Corridor and to welcome the latest freight train coming in from China's Yiwu. The cargo of that train will be transported from Baku to markets in Turkey and Europe. The volume of goods coming through the Middle Corridor has increased fivefold since 2019. In the last year alone, 358 block trains were sent from China to Europe. Work on the Azerbaijani section of the Zangezur corridor is expected to be completed next year, according to the head of the Transport Policy Department at Azerbaijan's Ministry of Digital Development and Transport, Fariz Aliyev. He said the corridor holds strategic importance for Azerbaijan's transport system and will enhance transit cargo flows both along the east-west and north-south routes. Its development is expected to enable the transport of an additional 15 million tons of cargo along the Middle Corridor. Eternal Brotherhood 4 multinational joint exercise is being held in Baku with the participation of special forces from Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Pakistan, Qatar, Turkey, and Uzbekistan. Azerbaijan's defense ministry stated that such drills are strategically important, not only for exchanging military experience and enhancing practical skills, but also for strengthening international security and maintaining peace in the region. Over in Georgia, a confrontation near the campaign headquarters of Tbilisi Mayor Kaha Kaladze led to fresh political controversy and a formal inquiry being launched. For more on the incident that saw opposition activists clash with members of the ruling Georgian Dream Party, we go to the Georgian capital and our Nini Nikolaishvili.
The Georgian Ministry of Internal Affairs launched an investigation under Article 126 of the Criminal Code, which refers to group violence, following a confrontation outside Kaha Kaladze's campaign headquarters. That clash unfolded here on Melikishvili Avenue just yesterday, drawing police to the scene to de-escalate tensions. Authorities say that further violations of public order will be met with a legal response. Witnesses and opposition activists claim that they were physically assaulted by members of the Georgian Dream Party's youth wing. Protesters say that bottles and other objects were thrown from the headquarters, leaving several people injured. Among them were journalists, some of whom were prevented from working, abused, and had their equipment confiscated. Several of the injured people were taken to hospital. Government officials, however, described the incident differently. Tbilisi Mayor Kaha Kaladze described the clashes as a deliberate provocation, accusing opposition activists of trying to artificially create tension during the election campaign. Kaladze also urged international organizations, including the EU delegation, to condemn what he called repeated attacks against Georgian Dream offices. Speaker of Parliament Shalva Paplashvili went further, criticizing what he described as foreign interference. In a statement, he accused the German ambassador of failing to condemn extremist actions, calling it gross interference in Georgia's electoral process. The confrontation on Melikishvili Avenue is not the first of its kind. Similar clashes have previously broken out outside Georgian Dream's central office during preparations for the upcoming local elections. With investigations ongoing and both sides trading accusations, the incident highlights deep political tensions ahead of the vote. For now, authorities say that they will not allow what they call artificial escalation, but the debate over who is responsible is far from over. This is Nini Nikolaishvili reporting from Tbilisi, Anewz.
Still in Georgia, the country is set to hold local elections on October 4th, with 12 political parties participating, according to the National Central Election Commission. 2 parties were struck off the list after failing to nominate candidates for mayors or deputies. A little over 3,000 polling stations will open nationwide, with voting to be held in 64 cities and districts. International observers from Azerbaijan, Hungary, Slovakia, Armenia, and Fiji will monitor the process alongside 16 registered organizations. Leaders and experts from across Asia met in Baku for the 13th Sika Think Tank Forum to discuss ways of boosting security, energy, and regional connectivity. The 2-day event opened with a message from Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev, underlining his country's commitment to cooperation, followed by sessions focusing on the Middle Corridor and the Belt and Road Initiative.
Will present and formally adopt the agenda.
Baku hosts the 13th Conference on Interaction and Confidence-Building Measures in Asia, CICA, Think Tank Forum, with 90 policymakers, experts, researchers, and delegates from over 10 countries gathering to discuss researched proposals and recommendations to explore key issues across Asia. The 2-day forum, co-organized by Azerbaijan's AIR Center and the Shanghai Institutes for International Studies, focuses on the theme, the resonance of development and security. The event opened with a video presentation and a special message from President of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev, delivered to participants by the head of the AIR Center, Farid Shafiev, highlighting Azerbaijan's commitment to building trust and advancing cooperation across Asia. Throughout the day, speakers led sessions on security governance, supply chain cooperation in the era of green and digital transition, energy, and major connectivity projects, with particular attention to the Middle Corridor, the Belt and Road Initiative, and the International North-South Transport Corridor. Some speakers even joined online to share their proposals and recommendations.
Upcoming Seeker Summit in 2026, and I wish for all the participants.
Speakers emphasized Azerbaijan's strategic role in these projects and its potential to drive stronger regional integration throughout the panels.
Indeed, very important event, not only for Azerbaijan, but also for whole countries, participating countries, as this event will deepen the bilateral cooperation in different sectors, especially connectivity, energy, and at this session we discussed very important issues, such as the Middle Corridor, which is important for Azerbaijan, also for Central Asian countries, for China to develop this route.
Building on this, Chinese experts highlighted how such initiatives could reshape connectivity across the continent.
So personally, I see here a huge potential in the synergy between the two projects, because the Middle Corridor, which promoted by Azerbaijan and other regional countries, would be maybe by distance the shortest the transportation road between China and Europe. So that means that could play as the bridge to connecting two major markets. And then I think these projects will also generate and stimulate the regional interactions and economic integration.
You said that is ready to activate.
The day wrapped up with an open discussion where participants engaged directly with panel speakers and exchanged views on how to move proposals forward. Tomorrow, day 2 of the forum continues, a forward-looking debate on how countries can cooperate more closely.
The Space Days Kazakhstan 2025 forum is underway in Almaty. It has gathered leading experts, global space agencies, and companies to talk on new technologies in space exploration. Our Fariza Kalimurzina has the details.
According to international analysts, over the next decade, the annual demand for satellite launches may exceed 3,700. However, the existing number of launch vehicles is still insufficient to meet this demand. This and other issues, along with possible solutions, we discussed at the Space Days Kazakhstan Forum here in Almaty. Kazakh experts emphasized that the main task for the country in space exploration and technology development is to attract foreign investment into an industry that still largely depends on Russia's space industry. A central part of this effort is the revival of the Baikonur Cosmodrome, much of which is still leased to Russia. A key project is the modernization of launch pad number 5 under the Baytarek program, and Kazakhstan plans to invest about $1.3 billion in its upgrade. According to the government's vision, these investments should help diversify the sector, which remains heavily dependent on Russia's space program and has faced difficulties in recent years due to the geopolitical situation.
A new launch vehicle will appear at the end of this year. This is the Soyuz 5 rocket, which will be launched from the Baytarek ground complex. We see this project as giving Baikonur a second wind. Of course, it is too early to talk about a sharp increase in the number of launches, but we can confidently say that Baikonur will remain an active cosmodrome. The Baytarek complex is a modernized Zenit launch pad adapted for Soyuz 5. Its key feature compared to existing launch sites is a fully automated launch. Another factor that makes this project promising is the use of a new, advanced and powerful launch vehicle for which there is strong and stable global demand.
Жаңа инновациялық жұмыс орындарды ашу
The forum also highlighted the growing influence of Chinese and Indian space projects that are actively promoting their capabilities. Last year, China pledged more than $13 million for joint Kazakh-Chinese initiatives in space exploration. Against the backdrop of sanctions pressure on Russia, Chinese companies working in commercial space launches are expected to become the first foreign operators to use Baikonur facilities under Kazakh jurisdiction. From Almaty, Kazakhstan, Fariza Kalimurzina, Anewz.
That's all we have for you for now. Thank you so much for watching and do stay tuned to Anewz.